Hello everybody. Today is Friday, August 5th, 2022. It's my mother's birthday. She would have been 83 had she not contracted cancer in her 70s. She was born the same year as the Wizard of Oz movie came out, which is why I have that Googled. But this is where I want to set today's video up today, because user Nut on YouTube asks, exist this code on GitHub? Well, no, but that's a good idea. However, password challenges. Oh, I have keys, but how to put the keys where I need to, should I just copy paste code off the container where to where the keys are already set up and just make it work? No. Show them sharing keys. People have to know how to share their keys. Get your thoughts together. Currently, I'm running a server called Huey. Huey has my pip install Huey work from the last video, but the question was asked from the video about sending emails from Linux services. That came before the Huey work, and so that code is running on the Munchkin container. Having the host machines .ssh location shared to the container is the desirable solution here, because you don't want to copy paste your keys all over the place. Endeavor to keep your keys in one place with a secure backup somewhere and other, but then just map that host machines .ssh location to wherever else needs it. Avoid key duplication. Okay, so how do we see how the LXD containers are configured? Because if it doesn't have the SSH location from host mapped in, I've got to map it in. So I did that prior to the video. You can see earlier, yesterday's work still running. I kept stuff running just to see how resilient it is, even on a laptop as you close it. You do server-like work on a laptop, you close your laptop, what difference should it make? And I think Microsoft has that worked out in Windows Subsystem for Linux. It seems to be going pretty well, things waking back up when they should. So here are the 4 containers I have on my Windows laptop. The work we're talking about is on Munchkin, but the server that's running, the Linux container that's running is Huey. And that didn't stop me, though, from seeing what options were available for LXC config device and using LXC config device to list how something is configured, even though it stopped. See, Munchkin stopped. Yet, I can do LXC config device list Munchkin. And it shows me data is mapped in, but only data. So I indeed took that little line I had prepared for myself in my journal, this one here. I had already copy and pasted it, right? So I've copied it into my copy buffer. And then I pasted it ahead of this video into the command line. That's what you see sitting right here, ready to run. LXC config device add munchkin.ssh disk source mount c users my username .ssh to the path of the client machine. So this is the host, right? This piece here, this path here belongs to the Linux host, which, thanks to Microsoft's infinite wisdom, they've decided to map the Windows side C drive in to be available Linux side. So I keep my master SSH directory Windows side. So things trickle down from Windows for me. So I'm mapping that Windows side location to container side. So that's like almost directly pointing between my Windows laptop paths under the Windows operating system. Not really. It's pointing under Linux, which is why we start from /mnt to get to C instead of some sort of C:\\, right? This is the forward slashes instead of the backslashes. A location on the host Windows machine, accessible through the host Linux machine. And now pointing to a location which we know will be existing on the container because the default user is Ubuntu. That makes a lot of things really convenient. There's a big trick going on in the uptake of containers, and that's the almost global use of the Ubuntu user for the kind of work I'm demonstrating here. At any rate, I execute that, and device.ssh is now added to Munchkin. And now if I, lxc config device list Munchkin, it now has data and .ssh, whereas that command was only resulting in data before. So my .ssh location is now shared to Munchkin. And so this is Huey running here, and this is Huey running here. Let's do a fun little demonstration of stopping Huey, and you'll see it stop here and here. It'll force a log out of this logged in Python session, which has been going since yesterday. And it's fun, right? LXC stop Huey, and that's all there is to it. So remember, this is still running. I could execute, print hello, right? So that's a still running Python shell. And this is a view of Huey running, I guess, as a service. Am I showing it as a service? Yes, because this is showing through screen. You don't see the thing at the bottom here because I didn't move my .screenrc over. But I guess I can demonstrate that with a Control-A-D for delete. And ls cd to root of Huey, ls. Oh, I don't have data connected. If I had data connected here, I would have just grabbed my screenrc and let you seen that it was screen that we were actually in, but I will assure you it's screen we're in. I'm not going to be able to do it that way because it's not easy to do without the data drive mounted. But I assure you we're in screen monitoring a service which has been running since yesterday, printing out this task runs every 3 minutes since yesterday, right? So I could Control A escape to put me in copy mode of screen, and then K smoosh on K or Control B for back, all the way up to when I started this service yesterday, and you can see all the logging information. I could even probably use the home key, Control Home to jump to the, nope, copy mode aborted. I'm back out into seeing the real-time printout from the log. Sometimes you send accidental data to it. As long as it's not a Control-C, you're fine. And if it's a task that can restart without any problem, you're fine too, because systemd will step in and restart it. In fact, let me demonstrate that. I'm going to Control-C out of this, Control-C a few times. See, it forced the termination of not only the service, but it forced the termination of the screen. I guess this is all just for context of what happens when I stop the Huey container. The Huey container brings that service back right away. See, there it is running again. This is output. It doesn't say, well, it says once this task runs every 3 minutes. It must show somewhere towards the beginning, or if that, it keeps its scheduling is the thing. The scheduling has high integrity between Control-C sessions. That's one of the differences between Huey and pip install schedule, which is what I'm moving over to. So we're looking at the service running through screen. We're looking at a Python shell running also on Huey. And now we LXC stop Huey. This is the before. And we'll just go over here and you'll see session terminated. And we're knocked back to what I've been terming the Linux host on this laptop, because yeah, there is kind of a Linux host. Even though thanks to Windows subsystem for Linux, there could be multiple Linux hosts, but we won't talk about that. Here also, we are knocked back to Lunderwand, which is our Linux host, where it was previously Huey, and we will, it looks like it did it, but it didn't come back from the command. That still seems pretty locked up. Isn't that interesting? It's taking a little while to restart Huey. So be it. It's not restarting Huey. It's taking a little while to stop Huey. I'm going to Control-C out of that. This operation can't be canceled. Interrupt 2 more times to force. That is one of the most useful, informative things I've ever seen. Now, maybe that's because Huey is running. Can we get back into it? Yeah, there we are back into it. So I am going to LX, no, it's not LX, it's sudo system CTL stop Huey. Okay, so we even terminated the session and everything. And so now LXC stop Huey here. Oh, the container is already stopped. There it exited out of it. Maybe, see, it unlocked itself right away. Maybe that was because I stopped the Huey service. Maybe the Huey service has something that keeps containers from being restarted or stopped. I need to look into that. But if I do an LXC ls fast, you can see all my containers are stopped, but I need to start Munchkin. LXC exec. Oh, I have to start it before I can execute it. LXC start Munchkin. Command line completion is so smart sometimes. Now command line completion works for exec, but it didn't until I started Munchkin. So there's some really smart control going on behind here for command line completion. Okay, so LXC exec hyphen space switch user login Ubuntu, and as Ubuntu on Munchkin, we just want to do an ls, and you can see that the data drive there is there. No, that's not the data drive I'm looking for. It's ls-la. It is the .ssh directory is there, and you can see it's linked in the same way the data drive is linked in, which is probably what made me look at the data drive and go, oh, it worked, because I know I'm looking for which one of these is not like the other. That means that this directory is coming off of host. This directory is coming off of host as well, but on host it's coming off of network. So this is a network drive mapped into the container. Whew, this is good stuff. So now finally, to answer your question, Nut, yes, I can put this code on GitHub. So already I have it in a directory here called GitHub, so clearly I was setting up for that. Inside of that, it's in a directory called scheduler. And there are the files in there. Now, I'm not sure if I need to distribute my logo and everything with this, but I guess I will. I'll tie this to me. I just don't want the text files in there. So one of the first things we're going to do is a git ignore. We don't want to include zip files or text files. Sudo, or the directory cats, or the directory old. It's not sudo. We can just vim.git ignore. Now, I actually don't want to forget all these things, so I just copy all these things to my copy buffer. It seems a little excessive, but now I go insert here and I paste what I just copied, VIPGQ to format it. After hitting escape, so it does a line wrap. Now I can look at these things and know that in my git ignore, I want to everything that has a .txt extension. That'll keep my credentials out of here. The directory old, the directory cats, and everything with a .zip extension. Now I can delete these 2 lines because I looked at stuff, right, and quit. And so now I have a git ignore inside the scheduler location. And now I can git init. That turns it into a Git repo. You can see it initialized empty Git repository, right? So now if we do an ls-la, I guess this is a before and after. Look at the list above, right? Oh, no, this is not inside of that location. I'm sorry. There's no before and after. It's just after. Inside the scheduler directory, which is where we are. See, we're inside the scheduler directory. There is now a directory called .git. So when you do git init, it puts that in there, okay? And it initializes it as a Git repo, but if you do git status, nothing has really been added to the repo yet. So we have to git add, and I guess we can address things individually. So we add the git ignore, git add. There's other ways to do this, but command line completion works. So git add scheduler, git add sendcats, git status. So everything's been added to the repo. So it is a Git repo. It's not a GitHub repo yet. It's just a Git repo. And in fact, one of the things I want to make sure is that I have my .git configure, or else it's again going to password challenge me on this stuff. So I am going to cd to home, do ls-la, and I don't have anything on Munchkin, man. I don't have my Vim, but I do have data here. So cd data ls-la. I keep a bunch of stuff there that is useful for, but not everything. My Vim, okay. So how we solve this is we put my git ignore into data, not my git ignore. We put my I want my .screenrc, I want my .vimrc, and I want my .git configure from the host machine, right? So remember, data is in common between all of them. See this? This is the user and host name of my Linux host machine for the containers. So let me clear with a Control L. I'm getting in the habit. And let me cd to home, ls-la here. It'll be a much more full of stuff home directory than is my Munchkin home directory. So we'll just copy a few things. We want the .vimrc into ~/data. Copy .screenrc into ~/data. And probably most importantly for this little exercise we're doing right now, so to get rid of password challenges or to know who we are, we want to copy git config, which contains, whoops, ~/data. And now, if we go back over here and we do an ls-la, there's a few more files here, right? There's the screenrc.vimrc, and as I said, most importantly, the .config. And so since we're now here on the container machine, I can cp, reverse the procedure essentially, .git config to home, cp.vimrc to home, and cp.screenrc to home. And now there's no place like home. See, what am I doing? I guess I'm cding back to GitHub, back to scheduler, and I'm doing a git status So all those things have been added, but we haven't committed yet. So I need to commit those changes, which is why I went through the trouble of getting the git config file in place, because it configures Git for me. It knows my username and stuff like that. I don't think there's passwords in there. It's just username. Passwords have been handled now by mapping that .ssh location to this container. My keys are in place, right? So if I cd to home and do an ls-la, there is now a .ssh location. Again, I reiterate that because of how important it is to this next step. There were two things that had to be true to push this code up to GitHub. The first is I had to have my password credentials worked out in the secure key exchange way that I do everywhere else. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to do it in a container if I have the ability to map the .ssh directory, and it's using the same keys as everywhere else. It's projecting a phantom copy of my keys into this container. All right. The other thing that needed to be true is that it needed to know who I was. It needed to say, hey, this is who I am, which is a separate thing from having the right keys. This is the announcement of, what git username, all that stuff. Okay, so since those two things are true, I should be able to tie together cd GitHub scheduler to a repo that's about to be on GitHub. So git commit my first commit, not ever, but on this project. But we can't git push. Git push is what a lot of people think is the next step, because you push it up to the centralized software repository. However, there is none right now. If I tried git push, I'll show you. There is lacking configuration data on this repo. How do we give this Git repo that configuration data? Well, we need a remote something or other, right? Repositories pushing and pulling data is about software living somewhere else. Well, that somewhere else happens to be 9 times out of 10 GitHub. Here we are in my GitHub repo, where you see some of my projects that are out there: OAuth, MLSCO, Levinix, Pipulate. But I am going to be adding a new repository. That repository name is going to be scheduler, which is available under my account's namespace, and a scheduler that works under systemd, a Python-based scheduler that works under system, that works as a daemon under systemd, that works as a Linux daemon under systemd. Okay, a Python-based scheduler that works as a Linux daemon under systemd. It will be public, and that's just about it, right? There's some license stuff that you can set at this point, adding a README file. I don't need any of this. It just needs to be public, create repository, and then you get the configuration information that you need. Now you have to be careful here. It could be defaulted to say HTTPS, in which case these instructions are wrong. To get rid of password challenges, you must switch over to SSH and not HTTPS. The password challenge will remain if you have that selected and copy and paste the instructions. You need that one selected. Now, we already did most of this. We don't need the README. We did our first commit. Now, we didn't name our branch main. That names our branch main. It gets rid of the politically incorrect master branch that is so often everywhere. And we need to make sure we're doing it in the right location. Get my head on straight again. This was the host machine. This is the host machine as well. This is the container. You have to watch your prompts now when you're switching between virtual desktops, as I do. I have to watch my prompts to make sure I'm doing these things in the right location. I accidentally copied my own prompt when what I wanted was git branch -m main. Git branch -m main. Okay, so it makes the current branch named main. And then the next thing we do is git remote add origin git@github.com :mclevin/scheduler.git. You got all that? I got all that. I got all that in my copy buffer. All right, so a remote origin location was added, and we do our first git push specifying -u origin main. I still got to get straight why it is. It doesn't work if you don't do your first push this way. You have to do, and this is a before and after. Watch, if we did a refresh, we are on the page for this repo at GitHub, McLevin/scheduler. We're in that location. If I do that, you get the instructions on what to do to get the repo here. Okay? If you do that push here, and you have to answer yes to this for a key exchange, because it's the first time this container is talking to GitHub. That key had talked before, but never from that container, and it's aware of such things. So now if I do a refresh here, whammo bammo, there is all the code for you not to have asked, is this on GitHub? Yes, yes, this is on GitHub. And now I can share that fact by going over to my journal where I push these things out and say yes. Nut. How often do you get to say yes, nut? It's a capital N because it's a proper name. The code is I guess I do that like this. Is on GitHub, and then square bracket. Color coding will show me if I got it right. No, it won't, because it's I forget whether it's square bracket. Let's do a test as if it were an image. But I think I got that wrong. I think it's got to be square bracket out here. Yeah, I thought the color coding would show me. And then the link in the parentheses. Sometimes I get it wrong. Okay, and then I label this. And what is it? This is really, so far, it's not even all the code. I need to do one more adding of code to that in order for it to be right. But I guess this is enough to get started. This is &H for headline. That's my macro for adding a headline. Oops, that didn't work either. My macros are blown away at the moment, probably because of using those registers for other things. So I'll do it the old-fashioned way. I'm using 3 hash marks for a subhead or a H3, which transforms into an H1 for the page when I publish the page. So this is Python scheduler as Linux daemon. Code on GitHub. Sharing SSH key with container. Who cares if it's a Python scheduler? I talked about that a lot before. I targeted that a lot before. Yeah, this is definitely, actually, sharing hosts SSH key with Linux container to eliminate GitHub password. Sharing host SSH key with Linux container to eliminate GitHub password. That really gets to the spirit of this thing. &p to publish. So that'll be pushing that page out shortly. I'll actually add the link to this video to that page when it exists. So that's documenting it really well. But there's one more thing I wanted to do from the Munchkin machine, because not everything is in this repo that needs to be in this repo for people to get value out of that. So the other thing is cp, what do you think? Of course, /etc /systemd /system /scheduler.service to here. ls-la. Now it's going to be listed here, and its permissions are not terrible. I thought it was going to be worse than that. But we do probably have to give write permissions to these two. So chmod plus w. So it'll do it as probably this current user to scheduler.service ls-la again. Scheduler.service. Okay, I added one W here, and I think that's correct, because other things in here, like the .py, have the same exact permission. That has now the same permissions as scheduler.py above it. So we have permission to edit this, and that's good. And I guess I should vim scheduler.service and ensure the comment syntax for comments inside of .service things. So before I really make a comment, I need to make sure that when I make the comment, it will be correct. So that is systemd.service comments. Which may be used for commenting. Each file is a plain text file divided into sections with configuration entries in the style key equals value. White space immediately before or after the equal is ignored. Empty lines starting with end lines, it's not empty lines. Empty lines and lines starting with. You got to read it correctly. Empty lines and lines starting with hash or semicolon are ignored, which may be used for commenting. Okay, so we're safe with the Python-esque commenting system. So we can, I guess, put at the top of the file this file this file must be in /etc/systemd/system to enable and start the service. That pretty much says it. this file must be in /etc/systemd to enable and start the service. You must put the file there with administrator sudo superuser do level privileges. Any changes to this file once active must require sudo systemd daemon reload. I think it's daemon reload. I guess I'll correct that later if I have it wrong. Okay, I will git add. It's scheduler.service git commit added service file git push. Okay, so as you can see, I had already added it and pushed it because I did a little pause in the video, and I'm not too much ahead, but the question now is, what about pulling that down as if we were you? So here I am in my Linux host system, so I would cd into my GitHub folder, and I can ls everything that has schedule in its name. And you can see cannot access schedule, no such file as directory. I don't have any scheduler named directories in there, but I can git clone git at github.com:mclevin/scheduler. Now if I ls sched asterisk, there are the files. And it's pretty much everything you need to get this running, except for the example, not the example, but the mail to and mail from. So if you vim inside of scheduler.py, you will see, oh yeah, cd into scheduler, and then you vim scheduler.py, you'll see that at some point down here, oh, it's not part of scheduler, it's part of sendcats, because it's the username and password for sending emails, right? So vim sendcats. You go down here a little bit and you'll find these two open statements. One is a mail from, and the next is mail to. So you need to create that mail from.txt and mail to.txt, or else this won't work. And the mail from.txt is, I guess I'll put that here in the format. You must create the file this is referring to with your email on the first line and your app and your Google provided app password on the second. And that gets attached to that. And then this one is, you must create the file this is referring to with each mail to address on a line. You can have multiple lines for sending to multiple addresses. You can can use multiple lines for sending to multiple addresses, and that should pretty much do it. And now that I've made a change to it, I can git commit all with a message instructions. On email files, instructions for email configuration added. Git push. So now you'll have a little better instruction. And I guess the last thing I really could do is the fact that this thing all runs from a Jupyter notebook is just really friggin' cool. So I guess I can go over to Jupyter Notebook and go back up, and you'll remember the unification now between my Windows system. So that is actually all occurring here in a place that is extremely accessible to Jupyter. And so I can actually create a new notebook in that location. And I will rename that notebook to Scheduler. It won't conflict. It's a scheduler.ipynb versus scheduler.service versus scheduler.py. It kind of belongs in there. And then I'll just copy all the code into a notebook. Save. And before all the metadata nonsense is added, well, so this is referring to these paths aren't going to work. Especially sendcats and writing into the temp directory. But for the sake of posterity, I'm going to include it like that. I'll probably fix it to run better in a Jupyter notebook in future videos, but now that I'm in there, cd scheduler, git status, right? All the IPython notebook stuff. There's an untitled.ipynb in there. There should not be. We're going to be adding swap files and checkpoints to git ignore. Then git ignore. I never like to look at this. And everything that is a .swap file should never get added. And quit. Git status, slightly less, that's red. We want to git add scheduler.ipynb. We want to remove untitled, that doesn't belong in there. Git status, git commit, added a notebook, probably broken. So it's okay that it's broken. But now if we go into GitHub, into that repo location, I guess that is it because I had clicked into my logo. When a refresh is done on that location, we'll have the .ipynb file there. Look how pretty those get formatted in GitHub. They know all about notebooks. Make me eat my words, will ya? That does not look correct. I thought I was going to see a beautifully formatted Jupyter notebook. Let's try a refresh. Still no. Oh well. Video can't be perfect, but you now can get all the code of this project. I guess primarily scheduler.py, which is all this lovely code for writing a pip install schedule based scheduler that can run external code pretty easily following this pattern here. Sendcats. Sendcats contains the pattern because sendcats.py is an external py file that's getting invoked from the scheduler, and that could just as well be JavaScript being run from Node.js or anything. So this is a Python-based scheduler that can schedule things from any other environment that runs under Linux because Linux API. Pretty cool. And then when you are on a Linux system, you can drop something similar to this, fixed for your paths, of course, into /systemd/etc/systemd/system. And then the systemctl commands are there for you to enable, start it, and start watching it through screen. This is really cool stuff, by the way. Anyhow, that pretty much wraps up the video. The code is now accessible via GitHub, and I even demonstrated me pulling it back down onto my own machine, and from which location I actually added the notebook. Now, to get it to run from my machine in that location, I would need to fix the paths and put the email from and to files in location. I don't feel like doing that right now. You can get the code. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you real soon. And don't forget to subscribe.